What is up, everybody, and welcome to episode number 10 of Wex Appeal Barbells, Beats, and Buffoonery. I am your host, Wex, and I'm super happy that you are on this adventure with me. Episode number 10. Fun fact, 10 is my favorite number of all time. I just like that number. It's a good, clean number, number 10. That's my number. So I'm super excited about today's episode. In fact, I'm so excited about today's episode that we actually turned it into 2 episodes. We had to, because it got really long. I was going to put it all together in one big super episode, but we're going to do a part A and a part B. So I hope that you stick around for both. They were a lot of fun to record. Before we begin, though, go and follow us on social media. That'd be a huge favor to me. Go and follow on social media. On Instagram is kind of where we do most of the things. Instagram at Wex Appeal Podcast, or on Facebook, Wex Appeal Podcast on Facebook as well. You can follow me on both of those sites. You can also follow me on Twitter at ZooCoachWex. ZooCoachWex is the Twitter handle. I don't do a lot of stuff there, I'll be honest. I'm not a big fan of Twitter myself personally. I've even went and started a whole Parler thing, but I don't even know what that whole thing is. People wanting to start a new Facebook with Parler, but I think I follow like 2 people. And I think I only follow them because I've been trying to get them on the show. So whatever social media platform you can find it on, go and find it. Follow us, support us, and help us out. That would be fantastic. As far as supporting, just to let you know, we do have a promotion going right now for a t-shirt. If you want the first edition Wex Appeal Podcast shirt, it's a black shirt, yellow writing with the Wex Appeal logo on it. Please do so. And you can find a link in the Instagram bio, or you can go to Facebook and see the post where we posted the link for the shirt. You can actually see the shirt. That shirt is only going to be on sale for another, I believe, 10 days. It is a limited edition, and once the shirts sell, they are gone. So we are not doing a second run of them, at least not right now. This is actually also a fundraiser, so it helps provide funds for the show so that we can do bigger and better things just for you. So go like it on Instagram, check the bio, and find the link for the shirt. Get one, and if you get one, please post a picture and let me know that you got one, because I'm probably going to be entering some people into a contest that got the shirt and help them, give them, maybe like a Duke Cannon prize pack. Speaking of Duke Cannon Supply Company is one of my favorites as far as soaps, but with the winter coming, and I'm in Florida, so the winter isn't that harsh. But this past week, it did get down to the 30s. So it got a little cold. Lips got a little chapped. But I found this Cannon Balm. If you're watching this on video, you can actually see it. It is the Offensively Large Lip Balm by Duke Cannon Supply Company. It reminds me of Junior Mints. Like when I put it on, I get that smell of Junior Mints, that movie candy. It was one of my favorite movie candies of all time. I'm giving all sorts of fun facts today. It's broad spectrum SPF 15, formulated to meet the needs of U.S. military personnel. Gives you that nice little tingle on your lips when you put it on. It is awesome. The challenge is to try and use all of the lip balm in the tube before you lose it. And that's the challenge. If you can do it, you're probably going to be more of a man than I am, because I try to keep on it and keep using it. But you can see, if you're watching this on YouTube, oh, by the way, other social media site, go and like this on YouTube as well. You can see this thing is massive. And I love it. It's good. So go check out Duke Cannon Supply Company, Offensively Large Lip Balm. My endorsement right there. Go pick it up. Use promo code BBWEX10, BBWEX10 to get 10% off your order. Don't just buy lip balm. You get free shipping at $30. Definitely get yourself some soap. They were doing a promotion earlier where if you buy 50, you get 2 free bars of soap. They've got so much good product. You will be hard pressed to find something that you won't use. There's beard oil, there's beard balm, there's shampoo pucks, that's the next one I'm going to try. I haven't tried that one yet. They have the thick wash, the body wash. They've got, of course, their soaps. They have their solid colognes. They have their spray colognes. They have everything. And it's the holiday season, so they got a lot of great gift packs that you can order for yourself, order for a loved one. I sent them to both my brothers. My brothers have loved the packages that they got for their birthdays this past November. it's just a great company. So remember, use the promo code BBWEX10 to save 10% off of your order, or use the link in the Instagram bio to get to the website. That helps as well and drives traffic that way. Without further ado, let me get to our guest today. My guest today is Mr. Tommy Marquez from Talking Elite Fitness, Morning Chalk Up, and formerly of CrossFit HQ. If you are in the CrossFit world and you don't know who Tommy is, you are not really in the CrossFit world. I will put that out there for you. He is one half of the voice of Talking Elite Fitness. Just a couple episodes back, we got to interview Sean Woodland. Sean and Tommy have been doing the show for about 2 years now since they were let go from CrossFit HQ. And that whole thing changed over, and they have been doing a fantastic job keeping the CrossFit community informed of everything that's going on, but also they have a lot of fun. If you listen to their latest episode, we're on episode 10. They're on episode 100. So they hung out with the Buttery Bros, who hopefully we'll get them on the show too. But man, they do a great job of involving everybody, of keeping everyone informed, but also having a lot of fun at the same time, with segments like crazy things they saw this week, their podium picks. Go check out their show for sure on Talking Elite Fitness. You can also find them on YouTube, Talking Elite Fitness on YouTube as well. And like I said, go like the Wex Appeal YouTube as well. We need subscribers. We need to get that thing up and rolling. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, as I said, this is a long podcast. We started to get into some things, and then about halfway through, we realized that we both had to be somewhere, and we hadn't finished our conversation. So he said, hey, let's do this like 2 nights from now. So we met up one night, and then on another night, 2 nights after that, and we finished it out. So you're going to get to hear the first half now, and the second half is coming very, very soon as well. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Tommy Marquez.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is episode number 10. We are into double digits now, and I have my next guest here. He is a former CrossFit HQ employee. He is co-host to one of my favorite podcasts, which is Talking Elite Fitness. You are also a writer on the Morning Chalk Up. And I mean, you're an on-camera analyst, you're a host, you're a producer, journalist. I mean, you've got a laundry list of accolades and things that you do, and many hats. So Tommy, how are you doing so far?
I am doing great, man. Thanks for that phenomenal intro. Wow. It made me sound way cooler than I am.
Well, I mean, you do. I mean, I don't lie when I say you have a lot of hats. Like, you know, from going back to when I was introduced to you, you know, through, you know, CrossFit HQ and watching the, you know, the update shows and all those sorts of things. And then, of course, you know, the Morning Chalk Up and transitioning over to Talking Elite Fitness. Dude, you're everywhere. You're also you also make time to do Buttery Bros videos and run around in, which costume were you?
I was Spider-Man.
Spider-Man. Run around as Spider-Man. I mean, come on, you're busy. You do a lot. So, you know, first of all, how was Thanksgiving? I know it's the first 2020 quarantine Thanksgiving, and, you know, kind of the weirdness of that. And, you know, how did that go for you?
It went really well, actually. You know, obviously stayed around in town. My fiance and I's parents both are in the same hometown as
Okay.
So, and they live 10 minutes apart. So my parents were you know, pretty cautious this season around. So we went and had an early dinner / lunch with her mom and her grandma and people that we've kind of been in the same kind of close circle with. And then we went and had a later dinner with my parents as well. So we kind of like were able to see both sides of the family, but keep it relatively separate and keep the circle small. And you know, also double up on food, because that's important, and leftovers too. So
listen, it's today we're recording this on Sunday. I just finished off one of the desserts. My mother-in-law actually brought this huge. The only way I can explain it, I've never seen anything like it before. It was an eclair casserole. So think of a chocolate eclair, and in a casserole form. And it basically a thick layer of chocolate on top with these like cream filling insides, and then kind of like a graham cracker, like kind of layer, like a lasagna layer of like graham cracker, you know, crust in the middle.
Oh, wow.
Oh, dude. Yeah. I mean, you eat it and it's immediate regret. It's like, oh, I want more, but yeah. It was delicious. So finally that's gone. It was an entire sheet. It was a big deal.
Oh man, I love it.
I got bad looks from my kids as I was eating the last piece of it. They walked out into the living room as I had because whenever you eat the last piece of something, you always take the entire plate. Mm-hmm. Like you don't dirty a plate. Yeah. You take the pie plate, or this is a casserole dish. So I'm sitting on the couch with a casserole dish. just going to town. And it was a small piece. My kids are just like, I can't believe you ate the last piece. I'm like, dad tax.
Yep. Dad tax what it is. Sure. And I'm doing this for your good. You know? Exactly.
You healthier by destroying my own body. So, yeah, I mean, same on our end. We were very small. Really, the only people in town were my wife's parents, and her sister usually is in town, but they went to visit her boyfriend's family and stuff. So it was just kind of a little small gathering. And then all my extended family, or all my family or immediate family, is up in Massachusetts. So obviously no or anything like that. So we did the FaceTime thing and talked back and forth. But all in all, it was a great day. Yeah. It was fun. I mean, we watched. Bring up a sore subject. We just ate and watched football. My condolences to you.
Yeah. That would hurt. That would hurt a little bit.
That one was rough. My wife is a huge football fan as well, and she looks over at me and she's like, "They got beat by somebody without a name. Like the team doesn't even have a name." Nope.
It's just the Washington team. Oh man. Oh, it was. One of my cousins is a I almost said the R word.
Don't do it.
A Washington football team fan, and usually every year we always have Thanksgiving together, so we usually kind of get to kind of jaw back and forth and talk smack on the NFC East. And he just texted me like right after the touchdown, interception, return touchdown combo, and he was just like, "Oof." That's about it. He's like, that's rough. And I'm like, yeah, man. Well, good luck making the playoffs. You guys are having it in hand. And
when you get beat so bad that the other person who's rooting against you is like, oh man, I'm sorry.
Yeah, exactly. Like I don't want your pity, but I'll take it just because it's the only thing that's keeping me going right now.
But hey, you're still in the hunt because the NFC East is awful.
Yeah. At 3-8, we're only a game out. So
yeah. Well, when I was joking back and forth with Sean, I was like, really, if they don't get to 500, can we just take that playoff spot and give it to somebody over 500?
I was talking to Sean too, because obviously he's in the NFC West and it's like such a hotly contested division. I said, you might not want to win the division. You might want to get the wild card spot and then go travel to the NFC East team and then rack up a win there and then make sure you get into the second round. So
I don't know though. That SoFi Stadium that's a nice place to play.
Yeah.
That's incredible. So talking about sports, since we're on the subject of sports, let's go back and look at your sports career. So tell me a little bit about your background. I know you played high school football. And also college lacrosse at Santa Clara University. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to ask the question about lacrosse that I'm sure so many people have. Explain to me lacrosse from someone who has absolutely no idea what's going on in lacrosse.
Okay, so lacrosse is basically hockey on a soccer field.
Okay.
That's pretty much how it is. Okay. It's you have substitutions on the fly.
Okay.
It's a very physical sport. And instead of skating, you're running around. So it's like, you're in cleats and stuff like that. But for the most part, the passing, the being able to go behind the net, the movement, the flow of the game, the transition is very, very similar to hockey. Okay. Going even deeper than that, there's a lot of elements that are very similar to other sports. So defense is very similar to basketball in terms of like man up, zone shifting, passing off defenders, things like that. the physicality is very similar to football in the open field in terms of contact, making hits, things like that. And then I didn't really have like hockey is where like the stick skills and things like that really comes into play. And I think the overall gameplay and feel kind of takes over. And I think there's a reason why I believe lacrosse is actually Canada's national sport and not hockey.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and you see a lot of carryover. You see a lot of Canadians play box lacrosse, lacrosse and like outdoor, as well as hockey, and those are kind of the sports that are kind of the centerpiece of their athletic endeavors, because they're very, very similar in a lot of ways.
Okay.
And in both instances, you kind of have to be an odd person to be a goalie. So that's another common theme. But it was not a sport that I ever played before college. So I picked it up when I got to school there, and kind of ran with it.
How did you get involved in that then? Just from having football, or? Yeah.
So in California, lacrosse is very much an East Coast game, and California is starting to become a bigger area for it. And there's pockets of really good high school programs up in San Francisco, down in San Diego, LA, and it's starting to spread across the West Coast. But at the time, we didn't have it at my high school, which is, a small school in the center of California in a farm town. So it's not really like we're not really progressive in seeking out those sports outside of our immediate bubble. We play a lot of classic sports, and I played football, I played basketball, I ran track. And I also grew up playing soccer, playing baseball, wrestling, a little bit of everything. So the physicality in terms of football, and like I mentioned, the defense and movement of basketball was very similar to me. I was a wide receiver in football, so the open field stuff was kind of natural to me. And I originally went to Santa Clara to try and play basketball, and I could have worked a little bit harder and pursued that a little bit better. But ultimately, the allure of being your normal college student and my mindset at the time didn't have it in the cards. And after about 8 weeks, when I came home for Thanksgiving, I'd put on a significant amount of weight, and my mom was like, "You got to do something. You can't just sit here and like put on weight like this," because I was always the skinny kid that couldn't put on weight. And
sure.
So I decided to start training and running.
Little more than the freshman 15.
35 actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That'll do it.
That's about 4.5 pounds a week if anyone's paying attention. Ooh. So yeah, it's pretty bold. It's amazing what the human body can accomplish when you're dedicated
and endure.
Yes, exactly, that too. And so I started working out again, started training, playing some intramural sports and stuff like that. And I saw the lacrosse team practicing out on the field, and I went out for a running session and was kind of curious about it. And then some guys from my dorm, along with the coach, saw me running, and they're like, "Dude, you're big, you're fast, you're pretty athletic from what, we played, intramural football and stuff like that. You should come out and try lacrosse. We can turn you into a lacrosse player." And I'm like, I don't know about that. So I went out one day, and the coach kind of walked me through. He's like, "If I give you a stick and I told you to throw it, how would you do it?" Just to see what my instincts were. And apparently I did the right thing, in terms of throwing motion, because he's like, "You're a lacrosse player. I'll see you next week on Monday. I'll get some gear for you. We'll turn you into a lacrosse player." I'm like, okay. And so that first year, it was a lot of like basic fundamentals that kids learn when they're like 6 or 7. But I'm learning at 19, and I kind of like worked on the fundamentals then, and then all 4 years of college, played for the team and became a starter and got to get put together a pretty nice collegiate career and playing that in a new sport. And I made a ton of new friends, and created this little lax family that was, very near and dear to my heart, and got to travel and do all sorts of things that like I wouldn't trade for anything.
That's awesome. And that I love new sports, but then you see certain outlier sports, and I call lacrosse an outlier sport just because it's not one of your your core 4 that we know from major leagues, and or 5 now. I guess we should include soccer.
Yeah.
Wrap our arms around that one.
Yeah, we'll see.
But because it's not one of those mainstream. That's more the word I'm looking for. A mainstream sport. It's kind of like, okay, I'm not going to find a whole bunch of people to go out and go learn lacrosse with at 40 where I'm sitting, and
it's not an easily accessible like pickup sport, like the equipment requirement alone doesn't, you're not going to see like casual neighborhood games of lacrosse, like versus the ball sports where you just need a ball or a ball and a hoop or something like that.
Call 10 people, hey, 5-on-5 football, let's go. All you need is a football and some land, and you're set. So you said you wrestled in high school as well?
In middle school. So so I wrestled in middle school, and then so I was always encouraged by my family to just do a little bit of everything. And one of the things, and like Tiffany, my fiance, will tell you, like I'm incredibly competitive. Like it doesn't matter if it's like I'm first learning the game or not. Like my instinct when I see a new game or a new physical endeavor is like, okay, what is this game? What are the rules? How do I win? All right, let me figure out how to win. And it's not like, let's play, like, it's fun, obviously. And part of the learning process is fun to me. But I'm like so competitive in that regard, whether, it's a beer dice or, or that the morning class at CrossFit that day. It's like I want to maximize my performance, and that pursuit really excites me, and it like fires me up. So I think that has kind of driven me exploring things like lacrosse as a new sport at such a late age.
Yeah, and I'm the same way as far as competition. I'm like, I don't care what it is. Pick up a brand new video game. If it's a game of beer pong, whatever it is, I'm gonna win. And if I lose, it's a bad day. Actually, we did a Christmas party. I have barely played beer pong at all. And we went over to my sister-in-law's house, and they had a big Halloween party. I think I said Christmas. Halloween party. And we go over there, and that's when I was dressed as Fat Thor. But we went over there, and her, I say her boyfriend, but they're basically married. I mean, they've been together forever. So, but her boyfriend's brother was talking smack about, I'm going to show you what it is on beer pong. And I'm like, I'll play. Like, let's go. And I think he hit the first one, and then it was boom, 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 boom. I knocked them all down, and he had to drink it all. So
I love it.
I went on a sweep. He's like, what do you mean you never played? I'm like, I don't play, but I'm going to win. So no, it's a lot of fun. Yeah. So going from wrestling, you do mixed martial arts now.
Mm-hmm. I've had to take a little hiatus, obviously, with a lot of the restrictions from the pandemic, but I guess you could call it a mixture of like classic Dutch and kickboxing and like Muay Thai, and then jiu-jitsu, both like gi and no gi. So I train those separately. My coaches have always wanted me to combine it and do some MMA training, which I think would be fun. And I'll probably do it at some time in the future, before kids start coming.
Yeah.
But
that's the cool thing about that is that you can possibly, once the kids get old enough, involve them in early enough. And
100%.
That's, something you could do with them, which I think is awesome. I mean, I roll around with my 3-year-old all the time. I mean, I don't do any actual MMA, but I watch it on TV enough to throw them in an arm bar and things like that. But,
yeah, totally. I think there's definitely like I see a ton of value in both creating a level of comfort around the physicality of those things. So in the event of something bad happening, they're not caught completely off guard. And they have some confidence in both being able to take care of themselves and handle themselves accordingly in those type of situations. And it's 100% something I'm gonna teach our kids. And I've noticed huge dividends in my life just from one of the things martial arts is great at: discipline and really getting you being comfortable with being uncomfortable. Because when in a way that's very different than that way we use it in CrossFit. Because when someone else is standing there and is like, if I don't take care of myself, they're going to hurt me, or they're going to put me to sleep, or they're going to take one of my limbs from me, then that is a level of adrenaline and like primal instincts that you have to be able to kind of shape and refine a little bit that you don't really get anywhere else. And there's a lot to be learned from exploring those kind of corners of the human experience, in my opinion.
And I think that's one of the things that I missed with CrossFit is that person on person.
Mm-hmm.
Like you do. So, I mean, listen, I love CrossFit. I love everything that we do in CrossFit. I love the competition side of it, but we don't have any elements of it's me and you, like whichever one of us lets go first, that's who wins.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's none of that physicality to it where, you know, like I think you had even joked about with the 5-on-5 setup with this year's games of doing like a 5-way tug of war.
Yeah.
Oh, that would have been awesome. You know, just to kind of see how that went. It would be, you know, them physically against each other. And did you ever watch Steve Austin's Broken Skull Ranch?
Yeah. Oh yeah. All the time. Where Tommy
The-
Hackerbrook made that run for like a year and a half that he just smashed everybody before Hunter McIntyre came in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before Hunter came in. Yeah. And like, but I loved that kind of show because it was, okay, you know, we're going to line up and one of us is going to ring the bell. And that's the one thing I miss with CrossFit. But I mean, that being said, I love 99.9% of everything else.
Yeah, for sure. Totally. And you even get that in other sports too. Like, you know, in basketball, if I'm lined up one-on-one and I've got the ball in my hands, it in that instance, obviously there's team dynamic moving around it, but there is an element of like, I need to beat my man one-on-one. I was a wide receiver, so like I need to beat my guy. It's you win or I win every down, repeated. So it's in many ways you get it in smaller bites, but it gets really kind of hammered home in that similar one-on-one fashion.
Yeah, and like I love all types with that. So that being said, and I know I asked you about this before, but you watched the fights last night.
Yeah.
So the first, we'll get to Tyson and Jones, but the fight that kind of made me laugh the most was Nate Robinson and Jake Paul.
Jake Paul, yeah, yep.
Jake and Logan, the brothers, right?
Yep.
So Jake Paul, and so the funny thing is it actually glitched as I was watching it. So I was watching the second round, it glitched, came back, and when it came back, he was out.
Oh my gosh.
So I missed the actual like little sequence where he got knocked down, got back up, and then got knocked out again. But I went back and saw it. I mean, I showed my wife and she was just like, oh my.
Yeah.
And then Snoop Dogg with the call.
Oh gosh, I want more Snoop Dogg live commentary across all sports. I saw a tweet this morning that said they should have Snoop Dogg on the NFL Red Zone and call it the Green Zone, and he's just super high and calling football. But
well, it was a very weird pay-per-view to watch with all the different fights and the artists in between, and I was just like, I was like, oh, okay, and it was actually sponsored by what was it, Weed Maps?
Yep, exactly.
Sponsored by Weed Maps. I was like I know Tyson has his own weed farm and all that, and I mean, say what people want to about legalizing. I'm like, hey, go ahead. Mm-hmm. It's not something I personally do, but I'm not opposed to anybody else. I've tried it, and I just,
not your thing. Yeah,
it just wasn't my thing. But it's other people's thing. But to see it that mainstream as like the title sponsor and the artist literally smoking while they're performing at this pay-per-view, it was funny to me.
It definitely was like, this is unlike anything I've ever seen before in terms of that. And like, there was times I remember, because a couple in between the Jake Paul and Nate Robinson fight, the Tyson fight, I was telling everyone there, I was like, I feel bad for the commentators right now, because they had to do so much tap dancing to fill time, because anytime a knockout like that happens, they're booking the time. They're blocking out the time for it to go the 8 rounds just in case. Oh yeah. So all that time is just extra time in between where you just got to sit there and tap and sit there and tap. And you've got this collection of characters from Israel Adesanya, Sugar Ray, and Snoop Dogg, and then you're trying to figure out a way to pull insight and information out of these guys, and there's rap music going on and all kinds of craziness. It was like, man, this is a treat for sure.
Well, what was funny is and if you watch the pay-per-view, if you didn't watch the pay-per-view, like it's worth going back and like finding a way and watching it and kind of seeing the whole thing. But Israel Adesanya was very like straight-laced at the beginning and very like, almost like it was an ESPN, broadcast. And then once one of the artists came up and was, I don't even know which artist it was, came up and was dropping bombs left and right and smoking weed, he loosened up a lot. he started swearing on the commentary and everything. It was like, oh, all bets are off now. Yep. that let's just go. So it was funny to see. And I think one of the announcers even said, he's like, I think I have a contact high. You're next to me. It was definitely not. I say it's not what I expected. I don't know what I expected going into that fight, but I thought once they got to Tyson Jones. Now the fight before that, or which fight was it? Badu Jack?
Oh, Badu versus the guy from Sacramento.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, what was his name? Ben. I know who you're talking about.
Yeah. I want to say it was like McKernan, but I don't know that it.
Yeah, it was Blake McKernan, I think. Maybe. Yeah.
And I felt bad for the guy, but man, Jack was just teeing off on him. But he stayed up.
Yeah. He had a rock solid chin, man, and he was getting punished like technically. And
yeah,
Badu Jack's no joke. He's old, but former multi-division champion. But man, and then Nate Robb had no business being in the ring, and that's the thing. Like, as someone who's trained a decent amount, like there's such a stark difference between like street fights and like bar fights and the whatever goes down there, and then when you're in the ring and now you're using technique, and the difference between someone who's trained 6 months and someone who's trained 2 years is night and day, and it can have devastating results.
Oh yeah, and you saw it. It was he outboxed him on all fronts. Then he went and called out Conor McGregor.
Probably not the best idea. I would like to see him fight Dylan Dennis, just because Dylan Dennis is one of Conor's boys, and Dylan's trying to make his way in the MMA, and he's a jiu-jitsu specialist. But that'd be fun to see them box at least.
Yeah, I was impressed with him. Now, on the flip side, obviously with Nate Robinson, that showing being as awful as it was, if you want a good laugh, go to his Twitter feed and go to his last post before the fight. And it's like, we're about to do this for the family and all this, and then just look at all the responses. The picture of him face down and the quote over top of it, "This you?"
Oh my god!
And it's just picture and GIF after just one after another. If you want a good solid 15 minutes of laughter, just scroll through his Twitter feed after that fight, and it was brutal. He got beat up worse on Twitter than he did actually in the ring.
The internet is undefeated, that's for sure.
Absolutely. So we've kind of gone through your sporting career, but let's go to where you are professionally now and talk about that. So take me back to making the jump from CrossFit HQ to all of a sudden the world crashes down. You end up being fired, as many other in HQ were at the same time. And now at that time, were you already writing for Morning Chalk Up?
I was not, no.
Okay.
I had a relationship with Justin, just because, he would reach out from time to time to get confirmation on a few stats or a few things here and there, that either I had written or some things that there was some information floating around the community logistically, for the season or for the sport, that it was hard to get confirmation internally from HQ. Like at the time, it's just, they weren't very open. So he would just, he reached out. I can't remember. I think I met him at the games, and then he reached out at one point. He's like, "Hey man, like I'm starting this newsletter, every once in a while, like I might reach out for a confirmation on something if you don't mind." I was like, "Yeah, sure." Like it's harmless information. It's not like stuff that the community shouldn't know. So we had created like a relationship there from time to time. And when everything got, so we knew something was going to happen shortly after the games when they announced this changes to the season structure, and there was a initial round of layoffs. So that was kind of like, even though they told us that we were safe, and they lied to us and told us that we were okay, there was that feeling that like something about this has changed. Now, the entire time that I was at CrossFit, not a single day did it feel like work.
Yeah,
it was like we're a bunch of good people in the room. Like, and now, and to clarify, this is the group of people that worked at the media office in Scotts Valley is very different from like Greg's inner circle and a lot of the people that were at the center of that, of the and rightfully so, the controversy and all that stuff in the past. We were a kind of a different silo altogether. And anyone who worked there will tell you that it was pretty much a blast to work there. We were around people that we cared about. We were all working towards a common goal. We had a great time working there every day, and it was just, the atmosphere was very fun. And all of a sudden, the atmosphere changed, and it wasn't, and it was weird because it had nothing to do with the people in the room, and everything to do with people outside of that room that basically came in and, for lack of a better term, hit us with a drive-by, kind of farted in the room and then left. And we're left there doing like, what the heck, and so there was a few weeks after that first round of layoffs where we're like, you just have that weird gut feeling like something bad is about to happen. I don't know why, but something's off. Like, why does this not feel the same way? For me personally, some of it had to do with the fact that like my brother was involved in the first round of layoffs, and like having to watch.
Your brother worked for HQ as well?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, he worked with us on the media team as a production assistant, working in the studio and stuff like that, and editing the update show and cutting highlights and stuff like that. And so having to walk him out of the office after getting laid off was just like for me, I'm 8.5 years older than my brother, so I take a very like paternal type role in terms of like how we grew up together, and in many ways I feel responsible for looking after him now and then, And so having to do that was like, this is something that I should never have to do. And this was something that CrossFit promised me was never in the cards. And this was the embodiment of a broken promise. And and that was when it really changed. It's different
when you're walking somebody out when they did nothing wrong. Like,
exactly.
One thing is like, oh, you stole a whole bunch of crap. Yeah, no, you got to go. No, they did nothing wrong. And basically being punished for nothing.
Yeah, it's they're basically collateral damage for other people's wars, and it was really frustrating at the time. And then obviously we got hit with weirdly enough, the day before, like an hour before, we got emailed a request to have a meeting with HR. I was in the gym working out at HQ with some friends, and I just had that that weird feeling like, man, you know what? I'm going to go clean out my office a little bit. And I started cleaning up my office. And as I was up cleaning my office, I got the email for the HR email. And it was just like that kind of whatever. I don't know if it's serendipitous, but it was like all kind of alignment. And
it was a force.
Yeah, exactly. I sensed a disturbance in the force, 100%. And we got laid off. And suddenly it was like, oh, wow, this is really real. Like life as we knew it, this journey as we knew it was over. This time working for HQ, this time creating something and building something that we had spent so long working hard towards was over. And it really had nothing to do with us, which was frustrating. Yeah. It had nothing to do with the quality of our work. It had nothing to do with the value and efficacy of our work. It had everything to do with, personal grudges and things like that. And that it was very frustrating and very infuriating.
I mean, if anything, you admittedly, you guys were at the top of your game. I mean, 2018, you're coming off the absolute best year you've had. I mean, everything just seemed to be like at a fever pitch and ready to go and ready to explode. And then this blows up. Yeah. So we get to the point you're fired. Like, what's going through your mind as far as where to next? I mean, that at the time was all you were doing.
Yeah. I had an initial kind of cooling off period at the time. So my I'm trying to think. My benefits went to the end of the month. I lobbied CrossFit against to CrossFit to keep my benefits through December. So our team got laid off in with like staggered final days, with Sean's final day being December, meaning that they got benefits through the end of the year. And
Gotcha.
so I lobbied to CrossFit that I should get my benefits through the end of the year, like the rest of our team, and that I shouldn't necessarily get that cut because I finished my work early, and so after that, there was honestly this weird kind of like limbo period for a couple of weeks where I'm just like, do I want to stay working in CrossFit? Like, I'm going to keep doing CrossFit for the rest of my life, no matter what.
Yeah.
Like this community and this methodology is a part of who I am. But do I want to make my livelihood dependent on that now? Because I've already been proven that my livelihood in this realm can be cut at the drop of a hat from someone who doesn't have my best interests in the at heart. And so as a result, I went through a couple of weeks where I'm like, do I make the jump to something else? I reached out and got some contact info from some people at CBS. They're like, hey, here's one of our talent managers. Send your demo reel and all this stuff out there if you want. We'll see if maybe there's some work. I might obviously have to like start down at the bottom again and like spend some time kind of grinding again. So there was that. There was the option to continue to do that, but not maybe at that same level and work locally.
Sure.
And that kind of crossed my mind. I thought about going back to school for my original field of study, which was mental health services. So going back for either marriage and family therapist master's degree or maybe a doctorate degree in the realm of clinical psychology. So there was that for a little bit. And then at the same time, Marston and Heber were both laid off too. And so every day, just to get out of the house, I was going up to Marston's house and we were all kind of hanging out in his garage, just kind of like stewing and thinking what's next and working out and listening to music and just trying to find ways to be creative and do something.
Sure.
And for the longest time, for probably 5 years, I'd wanted to do a CrossFit podcast. I pitched it at HQ.
Yeah.
Got told no, and told no in a very condescending way, basically saying like, "There's no, what are you talking about? Nobody paid. Yeah. That's not going to hit the register." And podcasting wasn't like this big deal at the time. But I'm like, no, sure. I think this is something here. Like, I think we can get ahead of it. And it was told no. And I pitched it again later on, was told no. And funny enough, the last time I pitched it, I was told no, and I asked why, and they said because someone else wants to do it now, and they're higher up on the ladder than you, and that was Sevon. So it was like, oh yeah, this idea that you've been going, someone else wants it, and they get paid more than you, so they get to do it. I'm like, all right, whatever. I mean, obviously, this is different.
Well, but then there's the whole side of it of being tied to HQ. At that point, would have been horrible, I think. Yeah. For you. So, I mean, it's that hindsight, and I don't even want to say hindsight's 2020 because 2020 is a swear word now because of this year. But, hindsight, really is, I mean, you look back and you're like, oh man, I'm glad all these things lined up the way that they did. Because if not, who knows what would happen.
Yeah.
So you said you wanted to start a podcast. So how did you get to so I'm assuming it was your idea to rope Sean in. Mm-hmm. and get this thing off the ground. So how did that jump get made?
So Sean had a couple more weeks, obviously like a month and a half to finish. And I'm sitting there kind of thinking like, okay, a podcast. Like, well, that's something I want to do. I think it's something we can do in a similar vein to the update show and provide some coverage of whatever the sport is going to look like. Mm-hmm. But we get to be a little bit longer form discussion. We get to dive into some things and be less like newsy, like tied to 8 minutes or less, branch out and do some fun pop culture stuff, more along the lines of what I considered the OG ESPN Sports Center anchor kind of mantra, where they got to blend sports and pop culture. And that's what I was kind of raised in. So that's what I really enjoyed. I was also a big fan of Bill Simmons and, The Ringer, his website, and Grantland, his old website. So all that stuff kind of felt like something I wanted to do. And so I pitched it to Sean, and we kind of talked it through, and podcasting was a very quick way to get the quality high and have the overhead be very low.
Yeah.
So we obviously were going to be strapped for cash because we didn't technically have a job.
Yeah.
And along the way, during that time frame, Justin LaFranco reached out to me. He's like, "Hey, I want you to come write for the Morning Chalk Up. I want to grow this thing, and I want you to. I value your voice. Obviously, you've been a respected analyst, and you've helped me out with some of this stuff. Like, I'd love to have you on the team and write for us." So that was like, okay, well, that's a way to stay involved, work on my writing. It's a reason to continue my focus on the community, and it's a way to it's a source of income, obviously, a way to allow me to continue to live. So it checked a lot of the boxes, and so we did that. So I said of course, and that relationship was started there, and working with them, and then when Sean got done, I kind of took some talking a little bit, because he was going through that same cycle that I was going of, do I need to look elsewhere? Is this what I want to do? Do I want to stay in? And eventually he came around and was like, all right, let's do this. And right around Christmas time of 2018, we decided that we were going to do it, figure out ways to kind of, and also the whole time when I was waiting for Sean, I was looking up tech ideas and stuff like that, like ways to do this and run it. And so we're like, all right, let's obtain some equipment. Let's get some mics. Let's do this. And by the first week of January, we're like, all right, we're gonna jump into this, and we're gonna start the podcast, bounce some name ideas around with some people, talk to some friends that we knew that could do some design work for us, and we leaned heavily on some of our connections and people that we had some good faith in, and that took care of us and were very generous with us, and kind of got that off the ground in January, and started working on it January, and I think we launched January of 2019.
Okay. Yeah. Trying to think.
Wadapalooza week of that year was
you were at Wadapalooza that year and the following year? Yeah. Okay. So I mean, some of my questions were who had the idea. We kind of answered that. And it was, of course, a risk, because it's free. I mean, at that point, nobody's paying you to put on this podcast. You're putting it out there to the world. So when did you know, okay, we have something, like this is going to be something. This is going to work.
So early on, there was some interest in companies and getting involved with us. There were a lot of people that had reached out and they said, hey, just let us know how we can support you, obviously. But at the time, there was a lot of hesitancy around the ecosystem of CrossFit and investing significant money, because no one knew what was going on. Volatility and change in the market doesn't create investor confidence necessarily. And so there was a lot of people like, hey, we're watching and we support you, but we just got to let things play out a little bit. And we're like, okay. So we're kind of in this kind of holding pattern. And after Wadapalooza, and I'd have to double check, but there was another round of layoffs during which, names like our good friend Rory and a ton of other people that had been there longer than us got laid off.
Yeah.
And that was almost like kind of like the nail in the coffin in as CrossFit in CrossFit HQ as we knew it.
Yeah.
With all of the faces and all the people that people grew up with were basically gone after that point. And like they basically cleaned house and there was very few people left. And we did an episode basically talking about what had happened, like more, I think it was called more layoffs at HQ. And we basically provided our insight and understanding from behind the curtain.
Sure.
And kind of talked about that. And that episode blew up. And that was the first episode that really registered on the charts for Apple Podcasts and everything like that.
Yeah.
And we jumped up the charts right away. And then our subscriber base and our average download started to pick back up. And I think it was one of those things where when there was another big like drop and change, everyone came and looked to us. There was all this stuff crazy going on. They're like, oh my gosh, what's going on? let's go to these guys. Confidence that like when, stuff hits the fan, people will look to us for information.
Yeah.
So we need to be gracious for that, and to be good stewards of that and caretakers of that, and continue to put out some good stuff. And along the way, there were some episodes like Matt Fraser's episode at 19.5 when he came on the podcast was a big hit, and that was super helpful. And there's a couple episodes like that along the way that really bolstered people's reliability around us. But that was the first moment. And then we started to talk to some sponsors, and I started to put together like, a pitch deck and stuff that could kind of help sustain us long term.
Sure.
And that was really the moment, like, all right, this has the potential to take care of us and make sure that we get our basic needs met and still provide good content, and we're going to pursue it.
That's awesome. And actually I remember that episode with the additional layoffs, and I actually think whenever I would post anything, I would post, I'd share the link and be like, hey, if you want to know what's going on, go here and go listen. So that was one of the things that I would do, is actually point people back to you guys' podcast, because it was a good explanation of, I had people who have no affiliation whatsoever with CrossFit that know I do CrossFit coming to me and being like, what's going on? Like, I hear all this, all this crap about CrossFit and this and this and this, happening. They've never been in a gym in their life. And I could relay them back to, a podcast like yours and be like, hey, you want all the info? This is it. This is kind of the layout of everything that's going on. So it's definitely, it is a source of, it is a beacon. It's one of those things that when things happen, just like your guys' interview with Eric Rosa. And by the way, thanks for the shout out. I was listening, and Sean's like, and we got a question from Stephen Wexler. I was like, oh, hey, thanks for name dropping me to the CEO, right off.
Yeah.
But like interviews like that draw people directly. Okay, what's going on with the sport? Okay, well, they talk to Castro, they talk to Rosa. They're talking to all the people that are making the decisions now, and really seeing where things are being steered. And I mean, you guys are you say Sports Center, but you guys are kind of the Sports Center of CrossFit now. You've got other outlets and other people doing things as well, but I feel like the number one go back to is you guys in the show. So it's awesome. I'm excited.
Well, thank you, man. I appreciate it, and I appreciate you sharing that information with everyone else, because that word of mouth stuff made a huge difference early on.
And you guys, you're about to hit, I think, number 100 on the episodes. Like, I know you've done more than that with all your, with all the extra episodes and things like that. But your actual episode, I think you're right around that triple digit stage.
This week?
Yeah, we're sitting here at 10. me and you. Yeah, so
you'll get there.
Yeah, I'm listening to what you're saying and taking notes myself. I'm like, okay, so what can I do here to kind of make the show work a little bit better? And I've noticed, as well as since being able to sit down and actually talk with people, that it's just people are like, oh, I'm getting so much more from it now than it's hard just being one person sitting there talking to a microphone about just random things. It's like, oh, okay, so what's going on today? Hey, let's chat. So it's been awesome, and thank you again for being on the show, and kind of being part of that in the beginning of this one. So, with everything that's gone on, obviously, I think everybody's kind of sick of hearing about the COVID and all this sort of stuff, but 2020 being the year that it's been, we have a lot of, I think the neat thing is we have a lot of things to look forward to when it comes to CrossFit itself. It was a very painful time, I think, for the community, but needed, because we didn't go through what we went through, we would still be sitting with a CEO that hates the games and, and all those things. So we had to go through those really uncomfortable, painful times. But with the state of 2020 and the future of the world and just everything that is going on right now, with COVID, the new CrossFit season, the election, the important question that I have is, for 2021, can Marvel save the movie business and get us back on track? And I know this is a near and dear subject to your heart. Okay, so can Marvel save the 2021 and movies in general and get us back on track? And I've got the list of releases here in front of me as far as the things that are coming. So I will give you the Marvel floor.
Yes. Let's see. I'm grabbing the release dates as we speak, but
we'll start with WandaVision.
Well, yes, we'll start with WandaVision. So I am actually very, very excited. So I think we have to define saving the movie business, right? Yeah. So we're talking like, stream like live streaming, home streaming type stuff, including that platform, because I think that's going to be a major driver going forward. And I think as long as that platform takes good care of people's general interest in theatrical releases, I think once the opportunity goes to a movie presents itself, and you get some of the added bells and whistles and the surround sound and all those other things that makes going to the movies special, I think that will make I think it'll be able to claw back, but it's going to be dependent on some of these movies actually being very good.
Yeah, so, and the thing about this whole time with COVID, like I feel like what COVID has done is almost turned streaming platforms into the red box and basically making theaters go the way of Blockbuster. Yeah. Where, okay, I'm going to get it straight to home and we'll watch it and I'll just spend the extra money on a, awesome surround sound system. But I mean, there's still that element of going to the theater that you can't match it.
The movie popcorn, the candy options, the social aspect of like a date night going out. I think, and it's interesting. And you kind of mentioned like, I'm going to spend the money on the surround sound. Honestly, I think with how the economy is working right now, that like I think people are less willing to invest in something like, say, a big surround sound system once we start to get outside of this, than say maybe $8 to $10 on a movie ticket to go like that. And I think I think Marvel choosing a combination of theatrical releases and streaming platforms for series like WandaVision, I think is going to be huge. I'm particularly really excited for WandaVision because I think there's going to be some. I think there's going to be some elements that set the table for the rest of the MCU going forward in this next phase. I don't know if you want to dive into that or not. But...
Well, so I'm just going to run down the title list and kind of the release,
sure.
Kind of the release in release order. So you've got WandaVision, you got Morbius, Black Widow, which is going to be a year past what originally supposed to come out. That's coming out in May of 21. You've got Venom, which they're going to incorporate into the MCU. From all rumors are pointing to that coming back. Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, Spider-Man 3 and the Eternals on the same day in November 5th, 2021. So they're both going to come out and release the same day. Then you have Thor, Love and Thunder in February of 22. Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, Black Panther 2, Captain Marvel 2, and then the to be announced, you have Ant-Man 3, Blade, Guardians 3, and then possibly Deadpool joining up into the MCU with all this stuff. So,
So one thing that was left out was Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Oh, you know what? That didn't show up when I Googled it. It didn't show up on the list. But yes, you're right, and I don't know where that drops in.
I don't think they've set a release date because they pushed it back because they had to do some reshoots and they were redoing some stuff. But because that's going to be a Disney Plus series. But it's I think WandaVision is going to be huge in terms of like, because what you talked about is some of those elements from like the Sony properties, like Venom, like Deadpool, all the other mutants, X-Men, and working those into the MCU. And I believe Wanda Maximoff is technically a mutant. So using
her and her brother were both they were in both series, right? Weren't they in the X-Men at some point? Yeah.
And I believe Marvel is shifting the language around, and there was the Wakanda Files, which is like a book that was just recently released, and it's like the Journal of Shuri, and it reveals a ton of information about the series. And sure. I think it may be there or maybe just be in discussion, but talking about how instead of the Mind Stone being the source of Wanda Maximoff's powers and her brother Quicksilver, the Mind Stone is ultimately what unlocked the mutant gene in them and ramped it up and acted as like a catalyst for it. So
Okay.
I think there may be some. They were never clear on it in Age of Ultron to begin with, but I
Yeah.
think that's how they're going to work it into the canon to let her be the bridge between mutant kind um, and superheroes and everything like that. And I think so. One of the major comics, Marvel Comics, is the House of M series. When Wanda Maximoff loses her mind, she basically goes crazy, and she basically wipes out all mutants on Earth and like starts bending reality with all of her powers. And I think that's what this series is going to want. WandaVision is going to be loosely based around, like creating her own bubble reality, and there's a bunch of hints to that already. And I
Yeah,
think
with different, like the 1950s and like all the different, scenes and family scenes.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think that ultimately she is going to have a major part. I think she's supposed to be part of the antagonist in the next Doctor Strange,
Yep.
along with a host of other villains and things like that. And I think WandaVision is going to be introducing mutants to the MCU in the form of her kids.
Okay.
So Wiccan and Speed, which Billy and Tommy are their names, and you can see their initials on the of like you have like your kids' initials on your refrigerator door with like the stuff
Yeah.
that they painted. In one of the scenes, you see a B and a T there, and she's holding two babies, which in one of the sequences, and one of the babies has like a glowing red hand, which is like an could be Wiccan, so it just lets you know that baby has the chaos magic just like her. So I think there's gonna be a ton of tie-ins going forward with that, which is why they're holding firm on that release date as the first to make sure that it sets the stage for a ton of others. But honestly, like that whole slate, you look at Morbius having Vulture clips of Vulture in that trailer. I think Venom, this one being called Let There Be Carnage, sets up the Carnage character as someone who's been an antagonist for Spider-Man and a bunch of the heroes all the time. And there's some awesome Carnage comics that they could work in. And I think obviously Deadpool bringing like R-rated MCU movies, which would be phenomenal. And I think right now they're outside of that initial like Infinity Saga, and so they're going to just kind of tie everyone in together, kind of more in line with what the comics books have been in terms of like crossovers.
Yeah, and I think we have a wide stretch of where we can go here. The expectation with what they did with the first set, or with the Infinity Saga, we had never seen anything like it before. So you go from this where we don't know what to expect, and then all of a sudden they start tying in. It's like, oh, I see. And then you see all this stuff kind of tie in, and I'll randomly just go through, I'll be bored one day and be like, yep, we're going through the MCU. I'll throw on Captain America, go to Captain Marvel, go to Iron Man, go and start going through it. And I'm taking my kids through it, all three of them that can watch and understand. And it's just fun to, even now I'll see things and I'm like, ooh, I didn't see that before. Like, I didn't notice that little flash that they did over here of this. So we have an expectation of how they are going to do it. And I'm looking forward to seeing how they might change it up to kind of exceed our expectation. Like, I'm going to be honest, as far as WandaVision, for me going into it, I'm going into it kind of like I went into Guardians of the Galaxy. So the original Guardians of the Galaxy, I didn't know much about.
Yeah, they weren't a big comic book property. They're kind of like a niche, like if you know them, you really like them. But other than that, they're kind of like this misfit band of, kind of like how they are in the actual movie.
And that's what I got from the preview. But I watched the preview, and I actually did not go see that one in the theater. So I had seen all the other Marvel movies in the theater. Didn't see that one. I saw this raccoon and this walking tree, and I'm like, this kind of looks to me. I was like, oh, this looks like it's gonna be like kiddish and stupid and all this. Ended up like renting out a Redbox and watching it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the best movie in the world. Like, this is one of the best ones that I've seen, and it's to date one of my wife and mine, absolute favorite movies. The one I'm curious about though, and it's almost maybe because of how far removed it is and it should have come out last year, I'm almost at the point where I'm like, why is Black Widow? And seeing how that's going to tie something else in, because it's going to have to tie some other things in, because to just go back and do a story on Black Widow at this point kind of feels like we're just, doing something that should have been done a long time ago.
Yeah, for sure. And even when it was originally slated to come out, it felt like maybe it was like more of a tribute movie to Black Widow, who like kind of got overshadowed in the midst of like the grandeur that was Endgame, And It just felt like she was kind of like a sacrifice along the way, like quite literally. And so I thought they were like giving her due as a character in that regard. But I think there's some ways, and there's some speculation about ways that what the actual premise of the movie, and some ways that they can actually rework some things to build bridges. One of which being that if there's mutants now in the MCU, that like maybe like those scenes of like that prison in Siberia that she's breaking like the Red Guardian out of, like maybe Peter Rasputin, aka Colossus, is in there, and maybe there's some other people that she breaks out, and maybe she like gets her ledger clean by saving all these other mutants and heroes, and that could be a big introduction for some of the other X-Men and mutants and things like that. So I had that like very much like you. That's a big for me. Like how does this play into the greater events, and does this shed some new light on Endgame or the Infinity Saga that will kind of paint a direction going forward? But I'm very curious about that, especially with the delays and the fact that they've been insistent on keeping this thing as,
theater
obviously.
Release.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And now, don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm a Scarlett Johansson fan, so I'm going to go watch the movie.
Yeah, of course.
Regardless, I'm going to watch the movie. The other one that's interesting to me, and I don't know if you've done the Google search on this one, but Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. Have you seen the Google search on the cast?
Some of it, yeah. Which specifically?
The rumor to the Multiverse of Madness is that the cast is going to include Tobey Maguire.
Oh, yes.
Garfield, like all the other Spider-Man.
So I've actually heard that as part of the third Spider-Man and not Multiverse of Madness, because Doctor Strange was confirmed to be in Spider-Man 3.
Okay.
So I heard that the next Spider-Man will include Doctor Strange, and that there'll be a tie-in between the two movies, and that we could get almost like a real life into the Spider-Verse type interaction between a bunch of the different Spider-Men. And there's a concept in the Spider-Man comics called the Web of Life. It's almost like what's it like, the creator in the Matrix, where he's like sitting there looking at like all the different stuff that's going on. There's like there's the Web of Life, is all the different multiverses with Spider-Man's like tied into one location and like one hub, So I'm curious, and I've heard that, well, what I would like to see is that through Morbius and through Venom, they set up a Sinister Six situation, and that the multiverse of Spider-Man is needed to help combat the Sinister Six, which would be really cool.
Yeah, as long as Tobey Maguire's not dancing.
Oh man! Oh God!
Spider-Man 3 is to me was the worst movie.
Oh, so bad.
I did love that they picked at it in Into the Spider-Verse though.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And this happened. So yeah, and then there's the other ones that haven't been mentioned. Like Ant-Man 3 doesn't have a date. Blade, Guardians 3, because all the controversy around Guardians and directors and all that sort of thing. There was the other one. There's another one floating out there that I can't remember.
So there's Guardians 2, Thor 4. I'm trying to think of any.
Then Black Panther is going to be interesting.
Yeah, I'm. Yeah, I hope. Yeah, I think they're probably going to do their due diligence and take some time on this one. But
they have to. They have to. They're going to have to obviously kill him off. And based on the comic books, Shuri is going to come in and take the role.
Yeah,
But
yeah. She becomes yep.
but whether she keeps it is the question. I've heard people talking about bringing Killmonger back, which I don't know that I'm like, I loved his character and I loved him as that as in that whole thing, but I don't know. I'm not a fan of bringing him.
and there's still the like the Eternals, which I think is going to be serve as like a bigger like historical educationary piece on like the universe and how everything kind of came to be.
Yeah,
because there's a lineage of how the Eternals were created and a bunch of other stuff that's going on. I'm trying to think what there was one other one that you mentioned that was in Phase 4 that I was really excited to see.
I'm excited for Blade.
Yes, yeah, and okay, that's what it was. Loki was there was another one that I want to see because there's in the like the little teaser we got, he's got the time variance authority patch on his like prisoner suit, which is basically like the time cops of the multiverse. And I think the minute Loki like zipped away with the Tesseract, I think everybody was like, okay, what's this branch timeline going to look like? Because he's kind of a fan favorite.
Yeah, he's obviously a fan favorite. I mean, really, there's not a bad character in the bunch. Even the villains, you're just like, oh man, they played them perfect. And all those characters in Thor were just fantastic. So it'll be interesting to see how that turns back around, because Guardians 3 should have Thor as well, based off of the end of Endgame.
Yeah. Oh man, I'm looking it up now, and there's so many ones like that. And this, I should say this, I think there will be maybe looser connections across the board around the entire Marvel property than there were in the Infinity Saga. Like everything kind of directly funneled into one final Endgame, if you will.
Yeah.
I think they'll keep those common threads, but I don't know if they'll be as directly because they're introducing so many new characters like She-Hulk and Moon Knight, Miss Marvel, obviously Blade coming in, and I think they'll operate at different levels, like like the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man versus like the global type of entity that Iron Man was versus like the cosmic entity of like Guardians of the Galaxy and Thor. So I think they may have like tie-ins, but it won't be as like directly involved as it was in the past.
Well, and there's also talk about bringing in, speaking of Marvel and their tie-ins, is bringing in Daredevil.
Ah, yes. Oh, and cool.
Actually bringing back Charlie Cox as Daredevil.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That whole series was incredible. Daredevil, Luke Cage, they had
Iron Fist too. But
we
talked about that. Yeah, that was
that was very good. The girl, I can see her. Jones.
Jessica Jones, yeah.
Yeah. Who had one of my favorite villains of all time, was David Tennant's character.
Oh, yeah. Oh, what's his name? It's driving me nuts.
Oh man. Yeah. Not Killmonger, because that was. Oh, that's gonna bug me. But yeah, no, I know. David Tennant played. Not Kilroy.
It's Purple Man.
Yeah.
Kilgrave.
Kilgrave. I knew it was Kill. I knew it was something Kill.
Yep.
Just an incredible character, and I like him as an actor from Doctor Who. That's a whole nother nerd nerd journey there. So kind of making a big shift, and I kind of prefaced this one for you and sent this one to you a little bit earlier. Going back into the sports world, and this year is the first year, and I think for maybe 5 years I haven't played fantasy football. Mostly because somebody came to me and was like, "Hey, we're going to start a league. It's going to be $50." And I looked at them and said, "You can't even guarantee me that any of these players are going to play. No way. I'm not putting money into a league where half my team is out for COVID.
Yeah.
It's just not going to happen." But I love fantasy football, and given your love for sports and the betting side of it, I'm assuming you are a fantasy football player.
Oh yeah, 100%. I've got 3 teams going right now.
So I sent you a text earlier and I said, okay, I want you to think about your fantasy football team, but not just any fantasy football team. If you were going to put together a all-time fantasy football team, who are your players? I wrote it out as, basically one quarterback. I'm kind of going starters, not really including bench, but one quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, 1 tight end, your flex, and then your D and your kicker.
Okay, so say that one more time. Let me just make sure.
We'll run down it. So we got the quarterback, then you got 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers. You got a tight end, and then you've got a flex position, which could be a running back, wide receiver, tight end. And then your defense. Now, I would say with the defense, so as far as an all-time, I'm thinking, okay, somebody I'm going to take over their career as far as, whose numbers really add up, as far as career-wise. But as far as the defense, we're looking at probably a specific year, because each one we're looking at individual players, whereas the defense we're looking at the whole team. And then your kicker, which throw anybody you want in there.
Yep.
So I will tell you. So my quarterback, we'll start there.
Yep.
My quarterback, I went through a couple different ones. Steve Young was on there just because of his versatility and his overall, his accuracy, left-handed. I mean, the guy was kind of an enigma. So Steve Young was in the running. Also Brett Favre, but he threw way too many interceptions. But if you need a 500-yard game, he's gonna throw one for you at some point. I went back and forth with a couple others. I mean, you can throw out Montana and you can put Brady in the mix, of course. But if I'm going to pick a fantasy football team and I'm going to put a quarterback in, and this is in his prime, I'm taking Michael Vick.
Oh my gosh. So that's funny. My pick, I wrote down specifically some of the years that I wanted. So here's the thing. If I'm playing this like for fun and I just want to like make from both a dual threat, like Michael Vick.
Yeah.
Practically like putting anyone but Patrick Mahomes right now, given like his playmaking ability and like his ability to like throw the football at like 8 different angles from a million different ways. Like obviously they would take that in today's league.
Yeah.
But I think what year was it? What was his first year back with the Eagles?
Oh gosh.
I want to say it was 2010.
I want to say 2010
or 2011. Yeah, that year with the Eagles, single-handedly won me like $1,500 in a fantasy football pool down at the local pub in my hometown that does an old school like touchdowns only league, and they do all the scoring by hand, and it's like they've been doing this league since like the 80s.
Yeah.
And he drafting Michael Vick like won me so much money that he will always be my first pick in that regard.
So is he your?
He's my guy.
Yeah, because I mean, you get more bang for your buck with somebody who can run as well, because touchdowns are only worth 4 in most leagues for a passing touchdown, or he runs it in for 6. I'm gonna take the 6 all day.
Oh, yeah.
And he's gonna run at least one, and he's gonna break easily 30 to 50 yards at some point in that game. And then that game, I want to say, was it the Giants or the Vikings, where he just like, he was still with Atlanta. It was before he went to prison and all that, where he just single-handedly ran the ball. And I mean, we're talking juke and left and right. And just like every other play, he was down the field. It was just incredible. Okay, so running backs. So I will turn it over to you. And remember, we're picking 2 with running backs, wide receivers.
I got my 2, and it's like not even close for me.
Okay.
They're 2 dual threat running backs, being great pass catchers out of the backfield.
Okay.
And being absolute monsters in their prime between the tackles, being able to make people miss and punch the ball in, not needing a change of pace back.
This really like exactly what I have.
So for me, it's LaDainian Tomlinson and Marshall Faulk.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
So I think Marshall Faulk and they're such great pass catchers. They've got like, I think the two, before last season, like LT and Marshall Faulk had two of the three top single fantasy seasons of all time, and they both have, I think, multiple. I know Priest Holmes is another one that I was like really close on, but both LT and Marshall Faulk have two in the top 10 each of the best fantasy seasons of all time, and I think Marshall Faulk in like The Greatest Show on Turf, like what he was able to do as a dual threat that gets so lost. Him and LT both, and it's just Marshall obviously got to win a Super Bowl, but I think LT's greatness gets lost on the fact that he was on perennially underperforming Chargers teams in the AFC.
Well, I mean, he played with Phillip Rivers.
Yeah.
Personally, I'm not a Phillip Rivers fan.
Yeah. He's got 12 kids.
Yeah, he's got interceptions for each one of them. He just I've just never been a Phillip Rivers fan, even when he was back with NC State. Kind of the hot-headed, like I'm like, you're hot-headed, but you're not winning, so like you're not backing it up. So I was never a Phillip Rivers fan, so I was always voting against the Chargers. Now I can actually vote for the Chargers because he's gone, and now I vote against the Colts. But so I have LC. I definitely had him down. My other one, and this is more based on the fact that his career, I don't want to say it was cut short. Well, no, I may. So there's two people you're thinking of, I think, right now. One, the career was cut short. The other one, he cut it short.
Yes.
Barry Sanders.
Yeah, so that's who I was thinking of.
Yeah.
Because he said the famous, like, did he say I'm tired, or did he actually retire and then he just went with it? Like, why did he leave the game so soon? Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, I mean, the Colts making people retire since him, Calvin Johnson, like guys who are in the prime of their career. And he's what, number 3 on the all-time rushing. And he only rushed for 10 years. He only played for 10 years. In comparison, your Cowboy, Emmitt Smith, was 16, 17 years in the league. Huh. And he obviously eclipsed Barry Sanders, but the numbers wise, Barry Sanders crushed him on all fronts. Had he played on a good team, because again, he played on Detroit, so a very underperforming team with all the mess that team is still, he would have been just incredible. So in his prime, I take Barry Sanders. Now, he's not a dual threat as much. I think in his career, he only caught like 11 touchdowns, but he was also one of those players, once you put the ball in his hand, didn't matter. Like, throw it or hand it, the guy made people miss. Now, you're going to take losses, but for the most part, you're going to average out pretty good.
He was also like the only option on like those Lions teams back in the day that, like, they had Herman Moore a couple times, but like that was about it. There was nobody else on that team, and they're stacking the box against you. So
yeah,
it's
the other
still
thing,
impressive.
He was doing that with a team that was awful. He's lining up behind a line that can't protect anybody, and he's still making these plays because he had to save his life. But he generally was not injured. I mean, he was pretty healthy throughout his career and just decided to quit because he was tired of losing and they wouldn't trade him. So he retired. He called it quits. And so those are my two, LT and Barry Sanders. And underneath it, I have Emmett, and I also have Bo Jackson.
Oh,
because
yeah,
that's the one that when I said career cut short is if he doesn't get injured, oh man, we're talking about a whole different ball game. That guy was a monster, and he didn't even play full seasons because he would play. He'd finish out his baseball season, and then come like 4 games in, and just wreck shop.
God, imagine if. No offense to him, because obviously he's a great athlete, but like even like the You Don't Know Bo series, like he didn't have the greatest like work ethic outside of actually competing. Like he's like, I didn't really lift weights, like. He's like, I'm just trying to play the game, I'm like, oh my God.
He was just probably one of my favorite, and that is right around the time I became a Raider fan. And I, became a Raider fan when I was 8 years old. I met a defensive lineman. He was the biggest guy I'd ever seen in my life. And then I saw him on TV, and I was like, oh, cool. So I just started following the Raiders. And he was on that team. It was back in '88. And just watching him run over Brian Bosworth, I mean, it was just it's just the things he did.
Ended his career. And
basically. Yeah, it did. And I remember that, I think it was the same game, or I know it was against Seattle, because he ran a touchdown up the sideline and just ran into the tunnel and just kept running. Like he just disappeared. And yeah, he was incredible. So had he been healthy, I would have loved to have seen Bo Jackson finish out his career.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed the first half of my interview with Tommy Marquez from Talking Elite Fitness. We had a fantastic time. We had a lot of fun just cutting it up. Tommy is great. He has been a huge help for me when it comes to just information in CrossFit. He and I text back and forth, whether he's helping me out with a competition, answering a question I have with podcasts. He has been just fantastic, just a fantastic human being. So I thoroughly enjoyed talking to him. And I hope that you stick around to hear part 2 coming very, very soon. You have to if you want to find out the rest of his picks for his fantasy football team. We had a great time talking about all that and talking about Marvel and just kind of nerding out with those sorts of things. As always, remember, go check out Duke Cannon Supply Company. Duke Cannon is, in my opinion, one of the best products out there to keep you smelling fresh, smelling great, but also keep you protected. This Duke Cannon offensively large lip balm, which I love because it's a friend of mine at the latest CrossFit competition I was at, the Reindeer Rumble, which, by the way, my daughter was on CrossFit.com's Instagram and Facebook page post doing the Bear Complex on Sunday, December 6th. I'm trying to remember the day. So if you go back and look at December 6th, you'll see my daughter, my little 7-year-old monster, out there competing. But a buddy of mine had a regular Carmax lip balm, and he pulled it out. I pulled this one out. If you're watching this on the video, I pulled this Duke Cannon offensively large lip balm, and it was easily like 3 to 4 times larger than that. So if you're seeing this on the video, it's big. So I love it. It smells like Junior Mints, so I'm a fan. Go check out all the products. Like I said, use the promo code BBWEX10 to get yourself 10% off your first order and get yourself smelling great for the holidays and get hooked up. Also, make sure you head over to our social media pages. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on Instagram. You can find us on Facebook, are the 3 main places. You can also follow me on Twitter at ZooCoachWex. On Instagram and Facebook, it's Wex Appeal Podcast. If you just search those 2 names on Facebook or Instagram, you'll find us there. And same on YouTube. If you go and search Wex Appeal Podcast, you'll find it. You'll pop up and you'll see the video version of what you're listening to right now, if you're not watching it already. Go like, subscribe, share, get the word out there. The more people we have following and watching the shows, the more guests we can have, because they'll look at that and say, hey, people are actually listening, and I'll go on that show. That sounds like fun. And we've had a great time with all of our guests, so I want to, especially thank Tommy for all the time he's put into these 2 episodes that are coming. The one you just listened to and the one that's coming. Man, what a day. What a podcast. So I will leave you with that. Coming up very soon, we're going to have part 2 of this episode where you hear all of the rest of Tommy's picks. But until then, ladies and gentlemen, be good to each other. Have a very happy and safe holiday season. Whether you're out shopping, just traveling, any of those things, make sure you're safe, and have a good one. Peace.